All right, hello and welcome to Dishing with Diane. This is season 3. I've kind of lost track of the episodes, to be honest, because we took a little break over the summertime and all. So now we're back, and I'm excited to be back and engage with all of you. So, as always, if you've participated before in Dishing with Diane, you know that you can engage with us real time, ask questions. It's a fireside chat, but today we are blessed with a beautiful warm day here in North Carolina, so we opted out of the fire. We would probably be a little too toasty, so we're going with the candle effect. So that's our ambiance today. But we are here today. We're going to talk about a topic that maybe isn't well known among folks out there about sewer scopes. And we have our special guest today. This is Michael, and he's with Nest Egg Home Services. And when I think about a sewer scope, I think about other kind of scopes that we have in our bodies and done. And so if you think about the purpose of those, you may be able to put the analogy together and figure out what the sewer scope is all about. Yeah. But I'm going to let Michael introduce himself, and we'll learn about what this process is and why it might be a valuable thing to think about.
All right. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. Thanks for coming.
It's such an honor to be a part of this. And it is a beautiful day here at the end of October. Kind of a surprising weather turn, but one of the great things about being in North Carolina. So I'm Michael with Nest Egg Home Services. I've been with them about 3.5 years. The company's been around for a little over 6 years. And I love the analogy of the scope of the body things because, now that I'm older, that's part of life. Just find out what's inside in order to help keep you healthy. And that's the purpose of a sewer scope. We do that in order to look inside to make sure that your lines stay healthy. So I really like that analogy. I'll probably use that in the future.
Yeah, I think about, arterial scopes and other scopes and things like that.
Absolutely.
Just check out whether things are running clear, clogged, whatnot. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, and then we can get into some details. A sewer scope checks the main line running from your house, and that can be on the outside of the house or inside basement foundation, to the street or sometimes in the back, wherever the main sewer line or public water source is. It can also be between your house and a septic tank if you have a system. One thing that some people do not realize is that those lines that run on your property between your house and the main public municipality line, that's your property, your responsibility. Even though it connects to public utilities, it's your responsibility. So anything that happens as far as damage, leaks, that falls on you, and those repairs can be expensive. Nationally, I think now it's about $8,000 for a typical
on an average repair.
Yeah.
So just to pause there, that's a big piece of news. Some of us don't realize. You think that you're hooked up to a city or town or municipality. They have responsibility, and they only have responsibility for their main lines. Yeah. You are responsible for everything else. So that's where the sewer scope can be really instrumental and valuable, right? In giving you information.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because what we can do with the sewer scope is run a line into the pipe itself and look at the inside of the pipe. So we can look for roots that have infiltrated the pipes. We can look for low spots where it has settled and it may not be flowing as well.
Clogged stuff that gets stuffed down drains and things like that. Sorry, hang in there, guys. Okay, we're back. Sorry. This is why we do live. It is what it is.
That's true.
Sometimes we have some internet things. So we're talking about sewer scopes. In case you're just joining, this is Michael with Nest Egg Home Services. We're doing a conversation on sewer scopes, what they're about, the benefit to you as a homeowner, the fact that you are responsible for the lines that run from your home exterior to whatever source you're connected to, the city, and or town lines and or your septic system. So the value and benefits. So go ahead.
Yeah. So as I was saying before, the purpose of this scope is so that we can hopefully prevent major problems. We can find those clogs, we can find roots, we can find cracks, damages, whatever it is, prior to it backing up and causing damage to your home. Even though the repair may be involved, it may be expensive, it's much better to keep those involved, expensive repairs on the outside of your home rather than causing water damage inside your home. That's the last place you want water to back up from your sewer system. Yeah.
Good deal. Yeah, you know, and a lot of times too, so this is something that's beneficial, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, to you, whether you are buying a new home, brand new construction, the home you're currently in, and maybe you never did something like this before, or maybe when you are getting ready to consider the home on the market, maybe you want to check and make sure, but also when you're buying a home, this may be a service you want to think about as part of the general home inspection. You may also want to ask if your inspectors do a sewer scope, right? Would that be fair, all those things?
Absolutely fair. With new construction, you tend to think that when you buy it, everything's going to be perfect. Well, we were talking earlier, there are no perfect houses. And within a short amount of time, things that are perfect will not be perfect. That's just because you're living in the house. And in a new construction home, they're laying these sewer lines, and then they're doing grading, they're doing landscaping, they're bringing in bobcats with shingles and materials.
Heavy stuff.
Heavy stuff. And so any of those heavy machinery that come through your yard may run over those sewer lines. And since the ground is still kind of settling, there could be movement and damage. So even in a new construction, and that's true whether you have your lines connected to the public source or a septic system.
Yeah.
And in an older house, anything can happen. If you have large trees, if you have areas in your yard that have kind of a low spot, sometimes you can tell if there's a very lush green area of your yard, there may be a leak. You know, that's some of the signs that you can look for in a house that you currently live in. Then on the other side that you mentioned, if you're going to buy an older home, that's extremely important to look at because you're not sure how the people that live there now and prior treated the sewer lines.
That's true.
And if they flush things down the toilet, if they didn't use their garbage disposal appropriately, you know, treated it more like a trash can than a disposal, things can get in there and clog and cause damage. It's so important to be able to see those things and prevent them ahead of time. And if you have a home, say, older than, say, the 1980s, you can get into different types of pipes that that are not as stable as the modern PVC, ABC.
What would be a type of
Well, the oldest
material?
The oldest type of pipes are clay pipes.
Clay pipes.
I mean,
they crack easy, I'd imagine.
They do. I mean, they were used in ancient times.
Okay.
But basically, they're pottery. I mean, it's clay.
Oh wow! I
pipes.
didn't even know there were clay pipes.
Yeah, there are. Now, in the ground, they're fairly stable, but they're very heavy, and so any ground settling, they could fall, shift, and crack, just like any pottery that you have in your house. And a crack will obviously lead to a leak. It could allow roots to get into that crack, which would cause a clog. So there's clay pipes. There's cast iron. Cast iron typically is not used today except maybe in commercial buildings. But in homes prior to, say, the 1980s,
so what's the most prevalent product now? Is it
PVC.
Like a PVC? Yeah, PVC piping.
And then there's ABS, which is a little bit more heavy duty, but basically PVC.
But PVC is kind of light. So what you're saying about all the trucks riding over and the grading that goes on and the you know, that kind of heavy material could crack a PVC pipe pretty easily.
It could crack it, and it could also make the joints loose. And so when pieces come together, because you know, you have a yard that's 50 foot from the house to the street, there's not 50 feet of one so they have to have a joint.
Right, connectors.
Those connection joints could get loose just by
the constant
pressure of machinery
Interesting.
driving
And then if they
over.
get loose, I'm assuming then there's leaks by the joints, and you've got those issues.
Exactly right. Yeah.
So it's interesting, right? Because you don't think about these things. I mean, let's face it. A lot of us, we don't think about what's out of sight, out of mind, right? It's under the house, it's down in the ground. And then if you also have the assumption that, well, that's the city or the town, they take care of the sewers and the pipes, and that isn't true. And so you need to be mindful of the fact that you actually bear that burden. If, gosh forbid, something were to happen, you're going to have to pay for the repair, you're going to have to fix things. So the sewer scope is a preventative. It can be preventative. So I've used it with some of my clients. I've had nest egg and inspection companies do sewer scopes because it's important. And in new construction, I've done this with a couple of my clients for preventative purpose. And the real value in new construction is the builder still owns the home. The builder still owns the liability. So if something gets discovered and there is an issue or problem, the builder needs to fix it. So there's that value add in that regard. And I literally, just before this whole session that we even decided to do, I got a message from one of my clients who was thanking me. He says, "Oh my gosh, thank you for having us do a sewer scope. The neighbor next door to me, literally, brand new construction, new homes, had a backup in his sewer system from the pipes that led from the house out, and that backup ended up, of course, causing damage into the home, which, because they already closed and owned the home, the builder was not responsible for repair. So they had to take care of the issue on their own. Had they probably had a sewer scope, I would suspect that clog would have been discovered because they just literally moved in. Like, it's not like they were in the house for a while.
Right.
So sometimes builders put things down the pipes that shouldn't go there when they're constructing.
and a lot of times just in the construction process, things as far as construction debris
Just
get left in tubs and sinks, and they get washed down before they get cleaned, because the cleaning process in a new construction home is usually one of the last things, because they really only want to do it once.
And it's not like anybody's doing something intentional. It's sort of just
it's
by
not.
accident a lot of times.
A piece of sheetrock drywall will go down, and that clogs it up. One thing I'll mention about new construction, just as a side note, we always recommend, if there's any issues, whether it's with sewer scope or anything else, to go directly to the builder. If it's a sewer scope problem and you find that there's a clog, go to the builder rather than bringing in your own plumber.
Yes.
Because of the builder's warranty.
Yes.
If you bring in your own person or try to fix it yourself, you may void a warranty.
That's a good point.
Very
so
good. Very good.
If you do
just
discover
to note
issues
that.
in a new home, especially in that first year,
absolutely,
your builder warranty is in effect, and you want to make sure you're not doing things that may violate it. That's a really good point.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's been something interesting you found in your doing these scopes and anything? What would be something you've discovered and has been helpful?
All right. One of the more recent ones we discovered was actually on a septic system. The line from the house to the tank was clear. It was a short run, so we didn't expect to find too much.
Okay.
But then we found the distribution box, and just out of curiosity, because we were doing a septic inspection, which Nest Egg does as well.
Yes, they do everything. They do all the inspections.
Yeah, we do
it all. One-stop shop.
That's true. But we were going to do a septic inspection, and in the process of that, running the lines, the sewer scope down the lines, we found that all 3 lines had at least partial or complete clog. One had some sort of crack in it. The owner hasn't dug it up yet to find out exactly what it is, but some sort of crack because the scope started going down instead of out. So it tells us that there was a hole there, possibly.
A hole of some kind. Okay.
You think, that's just out in the field. Well, eventually that's going to back up into the box, which is going to back up into the tank, which is going to back up
into your house.
You see where I'm going here. So the further away from your house that you can find an issue, the better, because you have that availability to correct it early.
Okay, makes sense.
Before it causes problems and backs up into your house. Yeah.
So for some folks, the sewer sewer systems are a different, obviously, than just your straight pipelines out to the city. Like, I keep pointing because we're at my house. This is my backyard, and we have our sewer lines. We're on city system, and it runs out the backyard because the city sewer main lines actually run through the backyards of our properties. So that's why I keep pointing to the back. But a lot of times it's to the front.
Yes. Generally, it's to the front of your house.
But a sewer system's different, right, and how they're set up, and there's different kinds. But I don't know, when you talk about distribution box, not everybody may understand what that is. So I just wanted to clarify. That's where I was going with that.
Okay, yeah, that's actually on a septic system.
Yes.
So most homes today, especially if you live in neighborhoods, newer constructions neighborhoods, and by newer I mean 20, 30 years, you're on some sort of municipality water supply and sewer system where any sewage, wastewater from your house gets drained out to a main line either in the back or by the street and then gets pumped out to a treatment facility plant. Mm-hmm. If you are on a septic system, that's all contained within your own property. Mm-hmm. So basically, your property contains the drainage lines, the wastewater treatment facility, everything. And what happens is the lines from your house get distributed throughout your property where it drains and goes into your ground. And there are ways that your septic system handles that. So the water initially comes out of, and all the wastewater initially comes out of your house into a septic tank. In the tank, it is allowed to settle, kind of mix a little bit.
Right, like solids settle, and the other stuff rises, just so we can be clear.
Yeah. Not to get
I know,
too
but
disgusting
it is what it is.
It is, yeah, it happens. It just happens.
Yes.
But then it either naturally drains because of gravity, or it has a pump that pumps it out to a distribution box, and that distribution box is where the lines actually go out into your yard or a field, wherever it might be. Typically there's 3 drain lines that come out of these distribution boxes, and all that does is when the water rises in that box to a certain level, it just enters typically corrugated plastic pipe. It enters those pipes and drains out typically by gravity out into the leach field.
Yeah, and into your soil.
That's right. And so if it's doing a lot, sometimes you can actually see nice green lines,
lush lines
in your yard if it's doing a very specific job. But yeah.
So when you were saying that distribution box was clogged, that's the problem. That's like, think about, like, that's why I like the heart analogy, right? Like, think about your heart as the main system, right, in the house, and then you've got your main arteries, right, that are running, and then you've got all all your tributaries that come out of your heart into the rest of the body. Well, that's what the distribution center is, like your aorta and stuff, the main lines, and then that distribution center runs all the little arteries and veins that then flow. So to keep all that proper flowing, you want to make sure. So you found a clog, which could have backed all the way up and through.
It could have.
Yeah. So hopefully that makes sense. I know that may have been more than you wanted to know, but I feel like a lot of people don't understand how it works.
Probably
it's more
not.
simplified when you're hooked up to a main system.
It is, because your wastewater just leaves your house, flows out one single pipe to one main pipe that the city manages, and they take care of the rest of it. So it's much easier when you're on a municipality water source. So you
save that person some heartache and trouble, right? They're going to have to do some things to repair the distribution box and repair some of the field, but
the repair is outside in their backyard instead of water damage that could have potentially happened to the house.
Exactly.
It's much easier to do work in a yard, and much preferable as far as damage is concerned.
That's right. So that is the benefit of a sewer scope. It allows you to see what's going on in places that you can't readily see. It gives you good data and information to give you a path forward to see, okay, if there is an issue, what is the issue? How do we course correct? And who is responsible in new construction? As long as you haven't closed and your warranty's intact, it would be the builder. For you as a homeowner, it would be you to manage and deal with any issues or repairs that might unfold. And as a buyer, if you're buying a home and you do a sewer scope as part of your inspection process, then it could become a negotiable item with the seller to say, hey, we found a problem, and how do we want to remedy? What's the idea here? So then you'd have a conversation with that seller and see what your options and path forward are to fix it if there is a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all those different things just help versus, having a big issue at the, inside and walls damaged.
Yeah.
So if someone, what's an average cost? I mean, it probably varies from place, but typically because you can do this as a standalone, no? You can just have a sewer scope done?
You can. With our company, with Nest Egg Home Inspections, you can do it combined with an inspection. If you're purchasing a home, you can do it as a standalone, just have us come out. For Nest Egg, if you combine it with an inspection, it's $295.
Okay.
If you do it as a standalone, it's $350.
Okay.
So even as a standalone, $350 to find out if there's an issue. Because if you catch issues early enough, you can hire a professional to hydrojet or clean or correct.
Kind of like push it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Correct some of those issues before they become a problem.
Oh, we do have a question. I'm
Okay.
so sorry. I where is scope inserted and how many feet is examined? Okay, great question.
Okay. There is.
Sorry, I have to get up to the camera. I apologize. Yeah.
Yeah. So outside of your home's foundation, or it could possibly be in the crawl space in the foundation, there is a cap. And in newer homes, it's a white PVC cap, and it has like a square bolt head on the top, for lack of a better word. And that's a clean out. It's a sewer clean out spot. We put the scope in at that point, and we run that line out to the street with a camera on it. It has a light on it, so it lights up the inside. We have, like, the one that I have is 100-foot line.
Oh, wow.
So it's very long. I haven't run into one yet that's longer. That's longer than that. Typical front yards are. So
it just keeps going and going.
40.
You just kind of insert it in, and it just kind of runs itself.
Well, no, you push it in.
Keep pushing it through.
It's a very relatively stiff cable that the camera is connected to, and so it flows through very easily. You just kind of feed it through as it goes along
until it gets stuck.
Well, hopefully not. And we go all the way to either a point where we can no longer go, or to the street connection. Okay. We will not go into the street connection because that becomes the city's property. One thing about our inspections is that we do record the entire video, the entire process. Any issues along the way, we take still photographs of that. We wrap all of that up in a report that we send to you. We provide you a copy with the video, any photographs that we take. So that becomes a source of information for you as well. Whether we find issues or not, you have that video that on this date, everything was good, or on this date there was this issue, so you can monitor that situation.
Okay, cool. How often might you advise a homeowner to consider a sewer scope? Because, like, people live like us for 14 years in our home. You know, what would be a frequency to consider it? Because obviously things can change from day one that you buy it to, year 14.
Right. I would say it depends greatly on the home and your usage of the sewage system. Like, for example, my parents are not going to use the sewage system as much as my family, that we have 2 kids. Well, they're not kids anymore, but 2, and they're friends who are constantly over. So you have teenage boys, they're going to use the sewage system a lot more. If you have small children, like babies, you're going to use it a lot more often than an older. But I would say 3 to 5 years would be a good average as far as when you would want to keep it inspected, because that would identify any like root growth. Most large trees are not going to grow fast enough in that amount of time to cause damage, but they would grow fast enough for you to be able to identify potential damage. So 3 to 5 years would be a good ballpark.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I know, it's always interesting. You know, we all do all these things when we buy a home, right? That's what, you know, being in the real estate business, right? You get all the inspections, you do all the things, and you get all this information before you go and buy a home, or when you're under contract and everything. And then after you're in it, it's like we may not think about some of the regular things we probably should do on a maintenance basis to keep things running well.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, I think more people think about HVAC, being on a maintenance program for that, but I don't think people think about sewer lines and other things that might be good to just do a spot check every once in a while, right?
Exactly. I tell people, just like you maintain your car, you know, you get an oil change,
Yeah,
you refill it
that's
with
a great
gas.
analogy.
You have to, you know, replace the tires, and in between time, you have to
that's a
check
good
the air
analogy.
pressure.
Yeah.
You have to check the coolant. You have to check all of those things. You have the same types of systems in a house. You need to regularly get them maintained and serviced.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want everything to run efficiently.
That's a good,
you want
good
to get the
analogy. That
fullest
really is.
lifespan out of all of your
There
systems.
you go. That's what it's about.
And so you definitely need to do that. And Sewer Scope is one of those things that you want to make sure that system is working like it's supposed to. Yeah, and there aren't any issues. So, yeah.
Well, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming toward the end of our session, and I appreciate you guys viewing and checking in and listening in to this conversation about sewer scopes. Hopefully you've gotten some good information, and I really appreciate your time,
Thank you so much for hosting. I appreciated the time.
Absolutely.
It was fun.
Yeah, so hopefully you realize there are things you could be doing on a preventative basis and on a regular maintenance basis, and that there's some value in spending a few couple $100 to save yourself maybe thousands, right? So thank you. Appreciate you tuning in to Dishing with Diane, a fireside chat, and we'll catch up next time.